reality therapist perception.
Hello and welcome back to Reactivity TV, where we give our therapist takes and reactions, perceptions to all things trending TV and movies. I'm Amy Albero.
And I'm Catherine Van Eyck. We're both licensed therapists. We're talking about The Summer I Turned Pretty Season 2, and this is a part one-er. Episodes 1 through 4.
Yes.
Because so much happens in this beautiful, cute little show that we had to break it down.
But what that really means is I had to twist Catherine's arm to talk about this for more than one time and asked her to do 2-parters.
There wasn't a lot of twisting. I really like it. So yeah. I'm enjoying it. We can want to talk about every episode?
I mean, there's probably not enough. I keep seeing these memes that's like me as a 30-year-old woman in my teenage girl era. And that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah. No, that's what's wrong with feeling like you're a kid watching a show. I
love it.
Do you ever turn on SpongeBob? Is that just...
I've been really getting into nostalgia in general lately. So this show hits for me. Yeah. Okay, so season 2 opens up with a bomb where we learn right away that Belly and Conrad are not together and Susanna died. And that really frames us up for at least the first few episodes of season 2. What for you so far has been sticking out, resonating with you?
I mean, just the fact that, all of these kids were really separately grieving through all these flashbacks we're seeing. And now it seems like they're finally coming together. So I'm wondering if their grief is also going to come together, or if they're kind of just still operating all on their own, or if they'll actually band together and make it something meaningful.
Yeah, right. You're right that they do feel so separate in their grief. And it feels like whether it was Susanna's dying or death or Belly and Conrad's breakup, that seems like they've really been siloed throughout this entire process. And it's really interesting to kind of watch even through flashbacks, the way that they were each kind of grieving and now what it looks like in the aftermath of it all.
Yeah. What are some things that come to mind in just grieving and loss?
Yeah. I mean, definitely, I feel like at least when we were kind of conceptualizing, should we do this in 2 parts or not? I had thought that the first handful of episodes really were about grief. We're so heavy in grief. And I think, again, it's really interesting to see, grief is not a one size fits all thing. It looks different for everyone and everyone grieves differently. And so I was thinking about, for example, Laurel, and we see that she was handling Susanna dying through, she referred to it as a fugue state, that she wrote a memoir about their friendship. And now with the reality of Susanna dying, it seems like she's really avoidant, and maybe, I don't know if it's quite denial, but she is completely avoidant and wanting to talk about her death, talk about anything in regard to Susanna. And it seems like it's really shut down. It seems like we hear it being alluded to that she's been kind of an absent parent through this past year, as she has helped Susanna and the boys navigate through this. And she seems just so, I'm trying to think of the clinical word for it, but she seems so detached.
Yeah. Yeah, she does. I mean, I noticed that first off when when Stephen got the package from Susanna and she didn't want to read the note. That was one of those telltale signs. You are avoiding this. You don't want to face all of the feelings that come up around death, around loss. And then of course, when she goes to her book event in New York City and runs into Cleveland, and they have this back and forth about how she says, I think Belly's having a really hard time. And he says, it's okay for you to also be having a hard time. This is your loss too.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about how he does let me just point out, he does such a good job of this. He did a great job of it in season 1 when he was talking to Conrad, and I was doing a great job in season 2 talking to Laurel. Like,
he should be a therapist.
I don't know what we have. I don't know what we should call Cleveland, but he is a great character here.
He's very wise.
Yes. He tells her about a time when he was feeling really depressed, and that there were so many people trying to pull him out of this dark hole that he was describing he was in, and that those weren't the people that were really helping him. The people really helping him were the people that climbed down in the hole with him. Mm-hmm. I couldn't help but think about Brene Brown.
Yes.
And how she describes empathy. That I know you've seen this video, but there's this video about, I think it's a giraffe or like a cow or something looking down into the, into like a sewer. And the ones that say like, oh man.
Sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks down there.
Wow. Right, see ya. Are so different than the ones that actually climb down into that sewer and into that dark hole. And those are the ones that really, made an impact for him.
Yeah. And
so it seemed like it almost like turned something around for her. She got a text from Belly where Belly was putting a branch out there to share some grief. And when she took that picture of she sent her an old picture of her, Susanna and Laurel, and Laurel almost wrote, "I miss her so much," and then she backspaced it.
I know.
And then went back to the way that she's used to grieving, and it just doesn't sound like she's ready for it yet. She's ready to dive in and share in the grief and really expose herself,
right,
as somebody that's truly hurt from all this.
Right. And as you're saying this, like, it does sound like she is trying, maybe the backspacing out of it is an effort to protect Belly, right, from grief, but it seems like it's more to protect herself from the feelings that come with it.
Yeah, well, that was one thing that Cleveland said. He was like, you're going to model for her what it means to what it can look like to lose somebody. And certainly modeling for her to just swallow it all up and keep it inside is not ideal. So you should share with her.
Yeah. Another person's grief we see throughout these first few episodes and for most of last season, we just didn't know what it was Conrad. And his grieving style seems similar or more parallel to Laurel's in that he is shutting down, isolating himself, not talking about anything, just trying to go through the motions and like keep life together, keep things as it is, but it's clearly wearing on him. And it seems like, again, he's carrying this huge weight yet again by himself and not really being open and talking about it with Belly, his, I don't know, technically girlfriend, but person who he's in some sort of relationship with. It doesn't seem like he and Jeremiah are talking about this at all. And he and Adam have such a fractured relationship. So he is dealing with this grief all by himself. And it really just, as like the flashbacks progress, you can just see it just weighing and weighing. The opening scene with him at like Christmas time compared to him at prom was kind of just devastating to watch. Just how alone in it he was.
Yeah.
And
I just wonder how, like, what was keeping Belly from seeing that? It seems like she really was so unaware of how hurt he was and is. I just, that's what I don't understand. Is like, this is this guy's mom.
Right.
Where are you in this? Where are you in being there for him? Because it really doesn't seem like you are.
No, totally. I mean, she was very fixated on their relationship, on the thing, on prom, on after prom, on getting the limo and the tux and all of that stuff. And there's a part of me that thinks, okay, this is a 16 or 17-year-old person. Like they can only think outside of themselves so much. And I mean, no shade by that. That's just like developmentally, like you're more egocentric as a teenager. But I do think there was such a big aspect of denial for Belly. Like,
yeah, I mean, she literally said to him at the end of the first season, like, why didn't you tell me I wanted to be there for you? Mm-hmm. Okay, now he's told you, like, be there for him. Mm-hmm. Forget about your corsage that he forgot. Like,
right.
My goodness.
Right. I know. And that, as a viewer, was so frustrating. Like the whole prom endeavor. Like my heart broke for Conrad more than Belly at the prom situation.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, how can you not understand that this has nothing to do with you? Yes, and it's like one of those realities that's hard to like sit with, where it's not personal and yet it feels, of course it's affecting you, but it wasn't about her, even though it impacted her. And that again is like maybe a more mature brain can tolerate the conflict that comes with that. But that was like my most empathetic side, my most therapist-y self is thinking she's in denial. And we might not have seen this yet. And it's not like a huge spoiler for me to say this, but Belly doesn't go visit Susanna really at all, except one time. Wow. And so she's not seen, and she doesn't want to. Like, I think she wants to have an idea that Susanna's going to be okay. And as she promised her at the end of last season, like, promise me you'll never leave me. Mm-hmm. And so I do think that there is this out of sight, out of mind. I don't need to think about it.
Well, even when Conrad was saying how she had to switch medications, mm-hmm. and she was like, oh, I'm sure it's just because of it. Like, Belly, he has no idea. He's a freaking doctor. That's not what you're supposed to say. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That is standing at the top of the sewer looking down on your boyfriend who's trying to tell you, I'm really worried about your mom, my mom. Yeah. And you're supposed to be like, oh my gosh, I'm really worried about her too.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't worry. She's not worried.
Yeah. So frustrating.
Yeah.
And then, I don't necessarily need to belabor this, but I also, in talking about grief, I also wanted to highlight Taylor in this, because Taylor is kind of on the outside, and she seems to not understand grief. And as, again, 16, 17-year-old kid, how would they? But I think seeing Taylor was such a good portrayal of just like how we as society don't know how the heck to deal with a grieving person. Or maybe we think like, whether it's going through a breakup, like, get over it already, like, just move on, like, come on, just have fun, like, kind of wanting a person to return to normalcy because maybe we think they should, or maybe we're uncomfortable with whatever that they're sitting with. And so I felt like, Taylor being her Taylor self, Tay-Tay, was like, yes, like, again, as a viewer, like, annoying and like, come on, girl, like, have a little empathy for your friend whose boyfriend, who she's loved her whole life, has broken up with her, and whose like second mother just died literally a month ago. Like, let's have some compassion and empathy. But the reality is, like, most people probably can relate to Taylor in that way of like not really being sure how to support someone who is grieving or has gone through a breakup or feels like, all right, it's been enough time. Let's keep it, like, you have a life to live.
Right. I just like can't stop thinking about the funeral.
Yeah. What are you thinking about when you think about the funeral?
What I'm thinking about, back to Belly.
Oh, it's not about Connie singing.
No, this is all about Belly. Wasn't this her funeral? Was this not her like second debutante ball? Because that's what it looks like.
She made a hell of a splash.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Or a crash. Yeah.
I mean, here is Conrad, who is no longer your boyfriend, being comforted by whatever, the girl that broke up with him last year, mm-hmm. whatever, someone that's not you, mm-hmm. at the reception after your mom's funeral. And you walk in on him being comforted by her. Mm-hmm. They were not declothed. They were not They were not in the middle of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And all she could think about was how offended she was that he found comfort in somebody else and not her. And she ended up saying that to him. Like, how can you do that to her and not me? Like, he freaking tried. He freaking tried to have you be there for him and you weren't. And now you're upset.
And making a scene.
And making a scene at a funeral.
I had the secondhand embarrassment for that.
Oh. How I was looking at all the people in the background and how like they were just like trying to keep their conversations going. But like, oh my God. Like, wow. Wow, Belly.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
At your second mom's funeral, you are focusing on yourself and your breakup. Not the time. No. Not the time, not the place.
That was so hard to watch. It was so hard to watch. It was like one of those, like, you see the car crash happening and you're like, oh my God, like, oh my God, it's going to happen. Yeah, that was awful. Yeah. And then, to make a scene, to exchange the words that she did.
I hope I never see you again.
Go to hell.
Go to hell.
I know.
To a boy who just lost his mom.
I know. I
mean, I am certainly not at the bottom of that sewer with Belly in this moment. She does not need
empathy.
She does not need my empathy right now. It's reserved.
Yeah. I mean, here's where I can try to get there.
Please try.
But maybe this is a rationalization. Like, and so this is where, like, again, inside the mind of a therapist a little bit is like, there's a part of me that wants Belly to just sit with, that was a fucked up thing. That's a thing that you probably feel ashamed about, embarrassed about, guilty about. And you need to sit with that. That was bad. There's like that's objectively bad. And so like, if I were Belly's therapist, like there's the temptation for that. That would be like the intervention. Yeah, let's sit with that. Let's try to understand that. Like,
does she even understand that? Is she even admitting that she did anything wrong?
Right. Well, and I think the other side of the piece that's, again, maybe a little bit more toward empathy is, Belly, I'm wondering if those really big emotions were actually displaced to Conrad. And this is actually your grief, your anger, your frustration about this woman you love dying. Like, maybe this actually has nothing to do with Conrad, but he's a convenient receptacle for all of the shit that you have not been able to let yourself feel throughout this year.
And maybe doing that was easier than facing the reality of Susanna being dead.
Right. And maybe this will actually invite one of my fucking parents to pay attention to me and to care about me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
Great point. Great point about symptoms and how they show up. And that, okay, maybe her grades dropping, maybe her captaincy being taken away and volleyball. Like, first of all, why did Laurel just find out about this in the end of the season or the end of the school year? That wouldn't have happened. She would have been called like immediately when these things were going on because her kid is a minor in high school.
Right.
She's going to know what's happening. And that's like a way to get your parents' attention. That's a way to get them to see, like, I need you.
Right.
I'm struggling over here.
Right. Yeah. And conscious or not, there were clear signs that were invitations for a parent. Again, Laurel's not the only parent, but a parent to like step in and say like, hey, I'm wondering if my daughter is struggling. I was so livid watching the interaction between Belly and her guidance counselor. I'm assuming that's who that was, where it was like, again, do your fucking job. Yeah. I'm so frustrated with the adults in this show.
Yeah. What did the guidance counselor say? Like something about how Susanna didn't die like all year or something.
Yes.
Or, like,
yes. She wasn't dying all year. Yeah, I know. That was awful. So messed up.
Yeah.
And again, like those are flags. Those are indicate. We talked about this in the season 1 reactions about Conrad, and that he was clearly depressed, and like all the signs were there, and people were ignoring them, or in this case, they're kind of like pathologizing Belly a little bit as like some sort of like delinquent or something. It's so frustrating. But I think, again, my frustration with the adults is about, again, like the absenteeism. Again, first season, we talked about that. And like, again, I have empathy for what the parents are going through. But as I looked at this season, and we'll definitely talk about it in part 2, the parentification of Conrad, it like is sending me, and like also like creates so much more empathy and love for him. But it's so, that part is so hard to watch. And I think what also makes it hard to watch is that it's not just in a TV show that this kind of stuff happens. It's like some little phrases and things that parents will say that put their kids under so much pressure to kind of keep it all together. I mean, Belly was under so much pressure from Susanna to keep the magic alive, to take care of her boys, to whatever, all the things. And so, of course, she feels like she's at the center of everything. It's not fair. It's too much pressure for a kid. You're the adult, like be the adult. I'm excited to talk about the second half because I really want to talk about Conrad and Jeremiah and their dynamic. And of course, with Belly in there a little bit more.
I haven't watched it yet, so
more to come.
Yeah.
More to come.
Yes, next time.
Yeah, so stay tuned for part 2 of season 2 of Summer I Turned Pretty Reactivity TV. We'll see you then.